Mr Speaker.
Gareth Hughes.
Kia ora, ngā mihi nui kia koutou kia ora. I rise to support this bill, and it's with great pleasure that the Green Party is supporting this local bill in the name of Grant Robertson, the MP for Wellington Central. It's fantastic that we're finally here tonight. I don't need to remind members it's been well canvassed in the debates, but it's taken an awful long time to get here. When you consider the original visioning of the town belt from 1839 through to the town belt deed in 1879, through to more than 100 years later when Grant Robertson, I understand, first got involved all the way back in 2001, through to the official process kicking off in 2010. Here we are, 2016, in the third reading of this legislation, and it's fantastic to be here, cleaning up the various statutes, reserves, deeds, which relate to what is a very special part of our city. I believe a taonga, not only for Wellingtonians, but for all New Zealanders, being our capital city. First of all, I'd like to thank and acknowledge the many people that have been involved. First of all, Grant, I think this is a testament to perseverance in politics. It's taken a long time to get here, but it's a fantastic achievement. Obviously, the Wellington City Council has played a pivotal role in this legislation, and some of them will be here.
A point of order, Paul Foster.
I'm sorry to interrupt the member, but I believe it's the convention in this House to refer to members by their surname or their electorate.
Thank you. Gareth Hughes.
From the member who gave an embarrassing Star Wars speech before. Incredible stuff. Mr Speaker.
No, Mr Hughes, can you resume your seat? I treated the point of order the way that I thought it be deserved. You can't refer to it. Gareth Hughes.
Mr Speaker, I'd like to continue the thanks and acknowledgement for the work that's gone from the bill, from Wellington City Council, the various officials that were involved, the 250 submitters in that process, through to the 30 submitters in the select committee process through our Parliament, and of course Committee Chair Scott Simpson. It's great that so many people have come together to protect what is a taonga for our city. Reflecting personally, it's every day I scooter with my kids to school past the Botanical Gardens part of it. In my student days, our flat backed almost onto Mount Vic, and I won't share any student stories with the House tonight. In my married days, we lived in the Aro Valley, and we'd often walk up Pole Hill Reserve to the Brookton Wind Turbine. Through to today, in my days off, one of my favourite things is walking with my dog, Joe, the German Shepherd, up to Ahumarangi Hill to the top there, to the radio mast. It's an incredibly special place, and I'm sure all Wellingtonians have their own unique, special stories about this part of our capital city that we love. It's fantastic that we're passing legislation unanimously. As often is the case with local bills, it is passed unanimously, often non-controversially. In a later part of my speech, I will touch on some of the single concern that we have with this legislation. But first of all, it's a real improvement to the status quo. What the area's been operating in is a hodgepodge of the Reserve Act, the original 1879 Town Deed, various other statutes, Public Works Acts, for example. It's good to sort of rationalise this in one place. A key problem has been that it's been impossible to add land into the town belt. Land has previously been taken out, but it's been impossible to add it in. So to, I guess, introduce a dieting methodology, we've actually been tightening the belt with this legislation. We're protecting and strengthening particularly the powers under the Reserves Act, and critically, more land will be introduced to Wellington's town belt as a result of this third reading and the consequent signature by the Governor-General to add 120 hectares of land to that. Crucially, it recognises the history of Manawa Whenua and also a co-management role when it comes to managing this incredible part of our city. I'd like to acknowledge Te Atiawa, Ngāti Ruanui, Taranaki, Ngāti Tama together, which comprise Taranaki Whānui ki Te Apoko o Te Ika and Ngāti Toa Rangatira. Mr Speaker, it's an incredibly positive step for New Zealand to be acknowledging their historical role, but also a role going forward, which I'm sure will be much longer in length than the existence of the town belt together in a partnership. When you just look at the principles of the legislation, you get a sense of what Parliament is achieving tonight, which is protecting the landscape character of the town belt, enhancing it, supporting healthy Indigenous ecosystems, making sure the Wellington town belt is accessible for all to enjoy, including a wide range of recreational activities. Now, my final point, and not to take away from the very positive step this legislation represents, is the concern we had around Clause 23. Obviously, the original legislation was amended in the Select Committee, Clause 23, which related to the Public Works Act. Now, the member who spoke before me, I believe, introduced an incredibly weak and I think false argument that this needed to change because of the potential earthquake risk and electricity insecurity of supply to the hospital. Mr. Speaker, that's a smokescreen. The reason for this, of course, is the government is determined to try and ram through a seven-lane motorway on the Hataitai side of the Mount Vic Tunnel down Ruahine Street. Now, no one in Wellington, I wager, and I think it's a reasonable assumption, would object to emergency electricity supply. Can any member envision that scenario happening? Yet that is exactly the argument Paul Foster Bell is using when the Select Committee removed reference to Wellingtonians as interested parties with the ability to object to acquisition under the Public Works Act. I believe it is a ridiculous scenario and example that some Wellingtonian would object in the event of a major earthquake to maintaining electricity supply to the hospital. Now, of course, it was a political argument, right? The argument wasn't really about that, is because the member couldn't say the words which he really meant, which is the government wants to ram through a 7-lane motorway and they want to eat into the town belt to achieve it. And this is exactly why the clause was amended in the Select Committee. However, on the whole, this legislation is a considerable improvement despite this. Now, the way we're going to protect the houses in that region, the way we're going to make sure Wellingtonians get better transport choices, including light rail through to the airport and better bus services, which don't require a 7-lane motorways, of course, the general election next year. This legislation is a considerable improvement on what is a very special place for Wellingtonians and for mana whenua, and that's why we're very proud and privileged of the work that Grant and the rest of the team have put into it, and glad that we can support it with our votes in Parliament tonight. Kia ora.
I call